Chapter 17, Neverseen. Mr. Forkel sat alone with Della when Biona and Sophie made their way down to breakfast. The tight line of his frown told him he'd already been given a thorough update. "I've asked Sior to help Lure and Mitya," he said, handing them each a bowl of green porridge. "That's one of the gnomes we met the first day, right?" Biona asked. Mr. Forkel nodded. "This forest will miss him, but Kala feels confident she can cover his absence, and I think it's important we get answers quickly, don't you?" "I do," Kif said, striding across the bridge with Dex and Fitz right behind him. "And I have a plan." "Do you now?" Mr. Forkel asked, studying Kif closer. The bruise-like dark circles under Kif's eyes made it clear he hadn't slept, but Sophie was much more concerned about the state of his hair. It hung flat against his head, completely unstyled. Mr. Forkel handed Kif a bowl of green sludge, but Kif set it aside and plopped into a chair. "I wish you would not punish the body over a troubled heart," Mr. Forkel told him. "Fine. How about it if you promise you hear me out?" Kif asked. Mr. Forkel gave him a spoon. Kif devoured his porridge in 3 giant bites, then wiped his lips and said, "I want to speak to Getten. I know he's unresponsive or whatever you called it, but his consciousness can't just disappear. I'm sure he can hear me. Or, more importantly, he can hear this." He cleared his throat and his voice shifted several octaves higher as he said, "Getten, it's time to go." Sophie cringed at how uncannily he sounded like his mother. "Your mimicking is very impressive," Mr. Forkel told him. Cave sounded both bitter and sad as he said, "I was trained by the best, and now we can use what you taught me to fool Getten. If we stage it right, I can make him think he's being rescued, which should draw his consciousness back. Then we can find out what he knows." "You're assuming he knows something worth all of that risk," Mr. Forkel said. "Why else would his capture get my mother?" He cleared his throat. "It has to be something important, and I can find out what it is. If he thinks he's being rescued, he'll come back. Then you can probe his memories." Mr. Forkel stroked his double chin. "Your plan does have its merits, Mr. Ch17, but it's still far too dangerous. We have already determined what our priorities are at the moment, though we are amending them to include an investigation of Fleur and Mitya's findings. That's not good enough." Keith snapped, pounding the table. "Keith," Della tried. "No." He pulled his hand away from her before she could take it. "Aren't you guys sick of being treated like their little puppets? Go here, read this, wait for this, eat this." He whacked his bowl, knocking it off the table and sending it spinning across the floor, spraying the remaining bits of his green porridge. "Kif," Della said again, "I know you're upset." "No, I'm just tired of being ignored," he interrupted. "This is a good plan." Dex and Fitz agreed. Both boys shifted in their seats. "It does seem like it might work," Fitz said after a second. "I never said it wouldn't." Mr. Forkel rose and placed his hand on Keith's shoulder. "But we've been over this with your schemes about Exilium. Just because a plan is feasible does not mean it's worth the risk. I understand your desire to bring something positive from everything that's happened, but one should never rely on their enemies to give them hope." "I don't care about my mom." "Yes, you do. As you should. And while I cannot base this on evidence, I wouldn't count your mother out yet." Keith snorted. "You say that like it's a good thing." "Yay, she's alive, so she can keep being evil." "Evil is better than dead, Mr. Ch17. Evil can change, though neither is in your power." "Nothing's in my power. That's the problem." Mr. Forkel squeezed Keith's shoulder tighter. "You are very important to our organization. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. I mean it," he added when Keith rolled his eyes. "You will play a crucial role when we rescue Prentice, and that is the mission that must remain our focus." "Whatever." Keith stood and stalked toward the boys' house. Sophie rose to follow, but Mr. Forkel stopped her. "Best to give him space. He'll come back when he's ready." Keith didn't come down to dinner. At breakfast the next morning, he picked at his food and didn't say much of anything. By the third day of one-word answers, Sophie was ready to stage an intervention. But Fitz and Biona reminded her of how badly they handled themselves when Alden's mind had broken. "We were awful," Biona mumbled. "Especially to you. and there was nothing anyone could say to make us act better. Alvar tried. Kif even tried. I'm still figuring out how to make it up to you, Fitz added. No need, Sophie promised. Her heart made an extra lip when Fitz smiled and said, I'll keep trying anyway. Oh, Kif needs to get better, Dex mumbled. I need someone to barf with me over Fitzby. My point, Biana said as Dex made gagging sounds, is that as long as Kif knows we're here, that's really all we can do. Sophie knew Biana was right. That didn't make waiting any easier. She found herself checking her window every night before bed, wishing she'd find Keith standing at this. On the fifth night, his curtains were at least open a crack, unleashing a shred of light. She decided to take the tiny opening. She didn't have any rocks to throw, so she settled for her shoes, picking the wobbliest, most uncomfortable looking heels. Nothing happened from the first dunk, but the second dunk did its job. Are you throwing shoes at me? Keith asked, sliding open the window. Seemed like a good idea. Now I don't have to wear them. He gave her a half smile, but it faded as he waved the air away from his face. Wow, that is a lot of worry you're hurling at me. You kind of deserve it. Keith mussed his still unstyled hair. I'm guessing you don't want to talk about it, she asked. Not really. She dragged out her sigh. Is there anything I can do? He started to shake his head, then stopped. Actually, yeah. What? Sophie asked, leaning out her window. She didn't hear him the first time and had to make him repeat. Promise me you won't hate me, he whispered. Why would I hate you? I don't know. Maybe you'll decide I wasn't worth sacrificing your shoes. Now that's never going to happen. She'd hoped that might earn her a smile, but Keith wouldn't look at her. I will never hate you, Keith. Why would you even think that? I don't know. I guess I just feel like I don't belong here anymore. You do, but I know how it feels to be the outsider, the one with the past, the one with the shaky future. But you know what I realized? Or what I'm trying to realize at least. Is this the part where you give me some speech about how it's our choices that show us who we truly are? Nah, that sounds like something an old guy would say. Finally, he gave her a real smile. What I'm trying to realize is that it's okay to be different. If everyone were the same, we'd all make the same mistakes. Instead, we all face our own things. And that's not so bad because we have people who care about us to help us through. You have that, Keith. We're all here for you, no matter what, okay? Several seconds scrolled by before he nodded. You should go to bed, Keith said as a gust of wind made Sophie shiver in her furry pajamas. The suggestion was tempting. Alvathare was so much colder than Havenfield, but she was afraid the glints of progress she'd made would be snuffed out when she left Keith alone. I've got a better idea, she said, racing to her bed and grabbing Ella her pillow and the thickest kilt. She coiled the blanket around her and waddled back to the window like a fluffy burrito. See? Window slumber party. Keith laughed, and after a slight hesitation, disappeared and returned with his own blanket and pillow. The floor felt hard and cold, the problems ahead of them unimaginable. But they weren't alone, and that made all the difference.